Hi, my name is Julie Stonek, and I'm here to talk to you about our book, Hand Wisdom, A Holistic Guide to Hand Injuries and Your Health. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've been a practicing OT for over 30 years. And the last 15, I've really focused in the field of hand therapy, and that's where my interest in this work began. My colleague, Janet Savage, is a hand analyst, and she has been working in that field for many years also. Hand analysis is the scientific study of your fingerprints and the shape of your hands and the lines on your hands, and it's not predictive in nature. It's really about personality characteristics. Janet and I combined this work to hopefully present an alternative way to look at hand issues and hand injuries, combining traditional anatomy and traditional hand information with a broader based possible alternative and energy medicine. We're hoping that putting those two things together is going to help people to heal quicker or to find the deeper meanings and the messages their hands might be sending them when there's an issue with their hands. So how this book came about is that I one day was outside doing some yard work, and I happened to cut my fingers on some glass. And after I got back from the ER with stitches, I wanted to look up what a cut meant on my fingertips. And I looked in Louise Hay's book, Heal Your Body, and basically one of the interpretations was that a cut was challenging your belief systems. And I was surprised because right before I'd gone outside, I had started to write down some new goals for my life and some plans and some affirmations. So I was really challenging my belief systems. And then I had this aha that in hand analysis, the tips of your fingers are about ideas and your beliefs. And I had just finished taking a class on reflexology, and this area of your fingers represents your brain, your thinking. So it all came together. And I called Janet and said, hey, would you like to explore a little bit more into this? Maybe when we have a problem with our hands, there's a deeper message there. And if we uncover the message, we'll heal quicker and maybe stop something worse from happening. So we put together the book and gave it out for people to try. But in order to do that, before I put the book together, I, being of the scientific mindset and the scientific method, wanted to really see if I thought this really made sense. Did it really hold water? So I went on like an investigative journey for myself. And what I did was I asked a series of questions. And I went finding research, looking into research to try to answer the questions. I have a lot of data and studies that I found that I'm not going to present here because this is just an informational quick video, but I'm happy to share those with people if you're interested, or if you'd like me to come and speak, I'd love to do that. But I want to go through those questions with you. So the first question I asked myself is, can our thinking affect the health of our bodies? And way back in graduate school, I'd studied about the stress response and type A and B personalities and the connection between high levels of stress and maintaining high levels of stress and how that created some disease in our body. And there's been a lot of research since 30 years ago in this area. In fact, the NIH has a whole section devoted to mind-body medicine. So in looking at this, it really became apparent that there's a lot of data, in fact, that links 90% of our diseases are linked to stress in our lives. So the stress response is very normal, and it's good. It's the fight or flight response that when we are being threatened allows us to bypass our conscious thinking and either stay and fight or run. So it's a very normal response. But it's meant to get back down to relaxation where the healing goes. So the stress response and then relaxation response are in opposite ends. If you ever watch a dog, somebody comes to the door, they'll bark hysterically. They're in that fight or flight mode. 5 seconds later, they're sleeping on their bed. Humans don't do that well, though. And the difference between us and them is that our bodies can't tell the difference between a perceived threat and a real threat. So if you sit down and really think about a bear attacking you, you're going to have an elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, all the same things are going to happen to your body as in the stress response. Now, not to the degree if you were really getting attacked by a bear, but it does happen. And the same thing occurs if you picture yourself relaxing on a beach or going to quiet meditation, you're going to be into that relaxation response. So our thoughts can create stress in our body, and that keeps us in that elevated stress and prevents us from getting to the relaxation response. And that's linked to a whole myriad of diseases. So I really concluded from looking at that data that yes, our thinking can definitely affect the health of our body. The next question I asked myself was, well, can our emotional state affect the health of our body? And just like our thinking, there's been studies that link loneliness, depression, bereavement, anger, and hostility to the development of different diseases, such as cardiovascular disease, some cancers, slower wound healing. So there is definitely a link between our emotions and our thinking and the development of diseases in our body. So then I asked, well, how does this happen on a cellular level? Well, this answer seems to be in neuropeptides. These are the chemicals that get released based on our thinking and our emotional state, and they are what the cells use to communicate with each other. And you will release different neuropeptides. There's about 60 of them, one of which is endorphins. You will release different ones based on your emotional state or your thinking. And the soup of these neuropeptides that sit around the cells are what seems to be what determines if a cell stays healthy or not. And when you think that we're constantly creating new cells in our body, that's important information to know. So why does one body part get affected over the other? That was the next question I asked. And what I came to the conclusion of is that maybe anatomy holds the key. We've all heard stories of somebody whose spouse dies, and then within a month or so they die of a heart attack with no history of heart disease. And people say they died of a broken heart. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe sadness is an emotion that lives in our heart. Or you hear stories of, say, a woman who is in a marriage that she's very unhappy in, and she can't get out because of financial concerns, and she feels stifled and develops asthma. She can't breathe in her life. She can't live the way she wants, so she feels trapped and stifled. So maybe the anatomy holds the key. How does this fit with energy medicine? Well, there's a few people who have written information about this, many I'm sure, but two I want to talk about is Dr. Mona Lisa Schultz and Dr. Lissa Rankin. The thought process is that when we have a traumatic emotional event or emotions that we have that we don't really process, they live in all the tissues in our bodies. And there's actually been research on donors that show that there's memories that especially live in neural tissue, because when people get a new heart from somebody, they'll often crave what that person used to like. There's stories of people craving McDonald's food, and then they find out their donor loved McDonald's food. So there is data and studies that show that there is memories that live in the neural tissue. So their thought process is that these memories get stored in the cells in your body, and if it goes unprocessed for a long enough period of time, it can turn into a disease in a particular area of your body. And body workers can attest to this. People that do craniosacral, that do Reiki, that do reflexology. The thought is that when you can release these through doing body work. And when you do, a lot of times people will have an aha memory that pops up for them from nowhere, or they'll start to cry out of nowhere. And in reflexology, the thought process is that tender points in your hand are reflective of that blocked energy. And acupuncture is trying to restore that blocked energy. So that's how this all fits in terms of energy medicine. But what do our hands have to do with all of this? Well, our hands are critical to everything we do. So to me, they're such a great way to send a message. Dr. Lissa Rankin talks about the universe sending a whisper to us. And if we don't listen to that, then something worse happens to our body. And I think our hands can be our whisper. Oprah talks about the universe hitting you with a pebble when you're off path. And if you don't listen, it'll hit you with a stone. And if you don't listen to that, a brick, and then the whole house falls down. So if our hands are the whisper or the pebble, and if we take the time to listen to the messages they're sending us when they're not working right, then just maybe we can stop something bigger from happening to us. How does this help us heal? Well, we know the first line of healing, or the first line of anything, is that you first have to admit there's a problem. You have to make the connection. So the point of all this is to be able to help people make a connection to something deeper that might be going on in their life at the time of their injury, or at the time of their issue, or when it happens, and get to that issue and try to work through that issue. That's the purpose, to help people make a connection. Sometimes just by raising what's from the unconscious to the conscious level, the healing can start. And sometimes it might require people actually do something and make a decision and make a step forward. But it's that first piece. So having said all that, Janet and I put together information after I did all this research. We put together our fields of information of hand analysis, which shows each section of the hand. Just like in reflexology, the entire hand is represented on your body. Your entire, body is represented on your hand. In hand analysis, each area of the hand is significant to an area of your life. We took that information and we put it together with information about our anatomy. What does a tendon do? A tendon's about connecting a muscle to a bone, so it's a connector. So it's about making a connection. So we put all that together, and the top part of the book is the area of the hand and hand analysis, and the bottom part of the book is your symptom or your particular issue. Anything from a splinter to a wound to carpal tunnel is in there. And again, this book is meant for anybody who has a hand. It's meant to be a reference guide for people who work with clients that have hands. So it really is for anybody. We tried to make it pretty simple. We gave all this information, we put it together, and we gave it to some hand therapists, some hand analysts, some reflexologists to play with for a while and give us feedback. And then we also collected case studies, some of which are in the book. And we're hoping to collect more, because the more information we have, the better we can make the information in the book for everybody. I did do a study on Decker veins, which is a tendonitis of the thumb. And the results of this study are being presented at a poster in the American Society of Hand Therapy. And once that's done, there'll be a link on my website that you'll be able to access that poster and that study information. And the study really supported the data in the book. So it was very, very exciting for us. So we're very interested in speaking more with you guys about this. Janet and I, we would come and present if you're interested in the information, if we can. We'd love to collect case studies or just hear from people who work with clients whether this rings true or not. We're really hoping this information helps to lead you and the people you work with to a deeper level of healing. Thanks so much for listening.